because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is an old set of the cloud.
Hello, you wonderful people. Welcome to Faith and Geekery. I am Becca B, and this is
Mark.
Do you see? I got that right. I think that's the first time I got it right straight away.
Very
so
good.
first
Well
things
done.
first, Mark, what have you been up to this week that has been suitably geeky?
Right, actually, since we last met, I have got one of those old-fashioned kitchen scales, and I have been kind of using Brasso on it and kind of reviving it to its kind of former life because it looked all disgusting. So I've got kind of suitably covered and kind of now have like a lovely, fantastic kind of scales set.
I love that.
Second-hand shop as well.
I used to do a lot of engagement with elderly people, particularly people with dementia. And one of my toolkits was a box of brass and Brasso. David Greet has joined us. Welcome, David Greet. And people would sit, and there's something really tactile and familiar about the smell of Brasso. So David and Lydia, as you're already joining in the comments, what have you been up to that's geeky this week?
Can I also just say I've made an observation. I feel as if I'm embodying a robot right now.
You are embodying the robot. I think it looks. I want to be a robot.
We can swap you over.
Thank you. Hang on. What have I been doing? I've been binge watching. I've not had a lot of time this week. Binge watching Ted Lasso.
Oh, fantastic! Is this the first time?
Yeah, never seen it before, and oh my goodness, I'm telling everyone to watch it now, and I know.
Have you watched all of it?
So behind the times. I am. I think I'm in season 3.
Oh, fantastic! So no spoilers, folks.
I know. It's so good. What a script.
It was one of those programs though that everyone talked about, and because everyone talked about it, I was there kind of going,
"Can't be that good."
Well, it's football as well, so
I know.
hard to have, but yeah. Then I was like, oh, it is actually really good.
It depends. Well,
yeah. So Lydia's just put setting an alarm so I don't miss.
I'm trying to work out. It might. Does it depend on the product launch, or are we saying that actually that level of commitment to the thing is in and of itself the behavior of a true geek?
Have you ever set alarm for a product launch, Becca?
No, I have pre-ordered. I definitely pre-ordered the Potterverse books as they came out.
Oh, collectible ceramic pottery.
Absolutely, Lydia. That is.
That's geeky in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But I think kind of queuing up for a Harry Potter book and kind of waiting till midnight for when things have been released. Usually, actually, for a birthday for Christmas presents, actually, for Becky.
What have you bought that you queued up for?
As in, wait till midnight for Attic 2024 to drop their kind of packs of blanket making. Because it is fierce. I mean, it's fierce. They kind of go within hours. So you're like, right,
yeah.
Put it in the diary. But that's it. You can just click it from your bed.
I mean, if we were to compile the behaviours of a geek, I'd say that kind of anticipatory, putting it in your diary, looking forward to it. I think that's fairly geeky behaviour.
Yeah.
Okay.
David said, my geekery has been putting miniatures together, taking photos and building Magic the Gathering decks together. I walked past that stand at night game shop, but I'm still not there with Magic the Gathering stuff. But also, he's also shared practicing printing lino on an a white t-shirt.
On a white t-shirt.
I was thinking A4,
A
A3,
white.
A white.
You put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable
all the time. But that's cool because we're both, all of us on. Yeah, we've dabbled with lino and do lino kind of printing, don't we? I've never done it on clothes though, so that sounds very fascinating.
No, I quite like the idea of functional art. So, what are you incriminating yourself, Brandon Snowburger? I think maybe that's a little white lie, isn't it?
Brandon says, I won't answer for fear that I will incriminate myself. No, I've never set my alarm for 2 a.m. just to play a new game on launch.
Sorry, podcast folk. I keep forgetting that you can't.
Yeah, sorry, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you.
At one point, I thought you were like, yeah, Mark, I can see it. You don't have to read it out to me.
No, it was yeah, it's okay. Anybody else want to tell us what they've been up to this week?
David has commented about bad grammar. David, it's mainly because I'm reading these things and I'm rubbish at just kind of articulating, kind of writing stuff and multitasking, basically, in any way, shape, or form. Some would say that
and any opportunity to quote Mike Myers. What was that? View from the top, something like that, wasn't it?
I don't know.
It was. We saw it in Albania, Mark.
Oh my gosh!
I know. We did.
Yeah. Wowza. Yeah. For those who don't know, Becca and I used to be at college together with David, in fact, and many others. And we went to Albania. And we went to Albania together, and as part of a mission team, like a cultural experience, which was very enlightening. And we won't kind of name other names.
Mark, do you have some geeky news for us?
I do indeed. So let's bring up some. I was about to bring up the geeky gallery instead, which was a problem.
Ooh.
Here is some geeky news. However, I will say from the off, I have forgotten the Grammys, which is a kind of thing that's happened recently.
That happened. It was mainly Taylor Swift, wasn't it? That's all I've heard.
Yes,
other people won some awards, but
Swift.
Most of it was Taylor Swift.
Yes. So think of Grammys, Taylor Swift. There we go. Over to Geeky News.
Welcome to Geeky News, and we start off with the sad news of the passing of Carl Weathers, who was famous for Predator, for Rocky and Mandalorian, as well as other roles. Next, we have the news that Stonemaier Games has officially now released Wormspan, and so that is now in the shops. We look forward to that kind of dragon version of Wingspan, or various version of. We also have the trailer of Despicable Me 4 that has now dropped, and there was some controversy in regards to the All the Quiz We Can last week, as I'm sorry, but I got one of the questions wrong in regards to Citadel paints. I was actually looking up colour schemes and not actual paints that you can buy, so apologies Tom, especially for that. However, we did manage to raise £60, so not bad really. Thanks folks for supporting a worthwhile charity, and that is the end of Geeky News. Thank you.
There we go.
How often do we get a correction in the news? It's remarkable.
Quite exactly. We're kind of running the trends there. That's or whatever that means. I also have information because we have been exploring our. Oh, we've got comments as well. Lydia Jane has put Mark's done it. The apology video, indeed. Yeah, it was just one of those things that I just kind of looked online and I was like, oh yeah, that looks right. I downloaded the app, looked at paints, and it turns out they were color schemes rather than just like set colors, which is why you can't kind of get blood-soaked yellow or whatever it was. So there we go. It turns out that product doesn't actually exist.
What was it?
But I think It was fine. It was fine.
Mm.
However, I will say that we had a competition, and it's been running for a couple of weeks, and that was just kind of explore our social media stuff. You'll be amazed to know that we didn't break double figures for our entrance. But I've got a little video to show, just to show. And I think I officially I have said that they need to be in touch within 24 hours to claim their prize. I know, they haven't got in touch yet, but I spoke to them earlier on this week. Earlier today, because the competition finished at noon today. So here's a little video to show what we did.
Hey folks, a drum roll please for the results of our competition. We first of all have had 5 individual entries, a big number there, with 2 repeat entries for tagging other people. So that's 7 people. I won't give away all the details, it's nicely hidden. And we have a little spin generator courtesy of the picker wheel. And so we're just going to click this here and press the button. And let's see what number we get. Number 2, which is, there you go, number 2, which is Oakwood. And so I'll be in contact with them shortly. So make sure your DMs are open for that. Well done.
There we go.
I really enjoyed that.
Well, I just thought for
Easily
transparency, showing exactly how it was made and otherwise, and bizarrely, Oakwood.
An apology and transparency all in one session, Mark. What is going on?
Setting the level high for things to come.
Integrity in live action.
Yeah. So and David's put, love a spin wheel. Yeah, that's what I thought really. I had actually seen it on another competition where I won. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna use that at one point. So yeah. So I think that is
Very
all
pleasing.
for that. And tonight we don't actually have any guests tonight, but a little bit later we're going to be talking about mobile phones. I thought, and that was just kind of inspired by. Oh, great! I feel as if Lydia is kind of like really selling the kind of my tutorial videos, perhaps. So she's Mark's done it, the best practice version. Indeed, we aim to vaguely please. But we are going to do something a little bit different tonight, because last week, I don't know if you heard, but we did a quiz, and Becca and I were fairly
A whole quiz.
with kind of 50 questions, or 49 if we get rid of the conspiratorial. So
49 good questions.
Yes, and one, but also Anyway, so yes, so we're going to do geeky facts for a change, and so I have gone and trawled the internet and TikTok videos for geeky facts, and so I've got 10 geeky facts. So if we'd planned ahead, Becca, I would have sent you half of these, unless it's too late.
Too late now.
So. First of all, do you know that there's a difference between acronyms and initialisms? Acronyms are like things like NASA, FIFA, and SIM, as in SIM card, whereas initialisms are BBC, USA, OMG. So acronyms are the things that you say together as if it is a word, NASA, rather than NASA. And FIFA, you say them as acronyms are NASA, FIFA, and initialisms.
You'd say BBC because that's the letters. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is already fun. It's like a quiz where I'm told the answers.
Yes. Oh, so Lydia James put, cows can go upstairs but not downstairs. That is correct. I might come back to a farm fact later. In the old program, The Little Rascals / Our Gang, the old-fashioned kind of black and white kind of series, Buckwheat, played by William Thomas Jr., wears a bowler hat. This is actually one of Stan Laurel's actual bowler hats from Laurel and Hardy, and it's because he was a close family friend and a mentor to the young boy, and so he wore it. And a bit morbidly, he was actually buried with it. But there we go. Number 3, Peter Cullen is the voice for Optimus Prime. So the Autobots transform. But he is also the voice of Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, which I think that's one of my most exciting facts of like geekiness, is just that Peter Cullen is the voice for both Transformers, Optimus Prime, and Winnie the Pooh. Sorry,
I
Eeyore from
need
Winnie the Pooh.
a pause while Becca gazes off into space and actually immediately goes to Google Peter Cullen so that I can see.
Yeah, he looks
his
like a
face.
traditional Disney employee sort of thing. Obviously not, but Joe, like the little proper traditional mustache and kind of like
What a
black wavy hair.
mustache!
Yeah.
Like Ted Lasso.
But
See,
speaking of
my
voiceovers, number 4, speaking of voiceovers, Alan Tudyk, who's known as Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball or Hoban from Firefly. He is the go-to guy for voiceover parts in mainstream movies, because he's like in Sonny. Sorry, he plays Sonny in iRobot. He plays various other kind of characters, but Disney, he's very popular. So he's Valentino in Wish, narrator in Strange World, Scroll in Disenchanted, Duke Weaselton in Zootopia, the Duke from Frozen, the Toucan from Encanto, Tuk Tuk from Raya and the Last Dragon, a guard in Frozen 2, Aladdin as the remake. Sorry, he's not actually Aladdin. He's Iago in the Aladdin remake. Knows more in Ralph Breaks the Internet, Hey Hey in Moana, as well as he's also Optimus Prime in a computer game. So he's the go-to guy for voiceovers. He's really good at generic voices and noises and sound effects and bits and pieces. Number 5, the average cumulus cloud weighs 500,000 kilograms.
Right, how did they measure that?
Approximately. I first looked on a website and it was like they weigh 11 tons, and I was like, get out of town, no way, I'm going to check this. And it was like, yeah, the average cumulus cloud weighs 500,000 kilograms. So yeah, pretty crazy, really. Number 6, one for Big Tim, weird Bible trivia. King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines.
How many wives?
700.
See, how are we defining wife in this context?
Well, indeed. But it is in the Bible. It's not quite the biblical ideal of marriage, is it, that we often hear about? Anyway, let's move swiftly on. Number 7, when people sing together in choirs, as they sing the same words, they synchronize their breathing. And as you exhale, it slows down your heartbeat. So choirs are often are likely to be synchronizing their breathing as well as their heartbeat. And I just thought that's a really fascinating one. Nearly towards the end, by the way. Henry Ford is famous for inventing the car, but he actually invented the quadricycle instead. He definitely revolutionized the automobile industry, but it was actually a German called Carl Benz, as of Mercedes-Benz, who is attributed who is actually attributed for inventing the car. Speaking of mechanical things, the word helicopter has an interesting origin. The pronunciation of it does not reflect its etymology, as it's from the Greek. Helico means spiral, and ter, as in P-T-E-R, silent P, is derived from pteron, as a wing to fly, as in pterodactyl. So helico, helico and ter. So we should be really calling it.
Oh, that's a good quiz question.
Yeah.
What relationship does a helicopter have with a pterodactyl?
Yeah. So that's very clever. And the final one,
there you go.
and
I'm saving that one.
To just throw a Lego question in, is approximately 60 billion Lego bricks are made each year, which is enough to reach all the way to the moon and halfway back to the Earth.
In the whole war on plastic.
It ain't good, is it? But that is the end of our geeky facts, and I just thought I would throw that one out there as a bit of a difference.
I wonder how many Lego bricks actually get thrown away.
That is true.
Because they're the type of thing that you pass on. They last for ages. There must be some estimate, because they don't break really unless your dog finds one and has a good chew.
They do deteriorate after a while, but I mean, for example,
they fade a little, but
I've got some that are starting to fade, but they're over 40 years old. So
yeah.
they do take a long time to, and I would say that doesn't mean that they completely degrade either. It just means bits snap off them.
So they're a bit more brittle than they.
Yeah, but again,
okay.
they've increased the pressure of them and kind of the creation of them over the years as well. So that's just some of the first ones.
Yeah. How old is Lego?
Pass. It started off with wooden bricks, there, didn't it? Lydia's just put. I've just realised that there isn't any captions showing. Do captions normally show? No, but it depends on which streaming place that you go to. So I think there is sometimes auto captioning. So you
Does
may have turned
Facebook
that
do an
off.
auto caption? Have you turned them off?
Yeah. So that
I find it much easier to listen to myself when I've got a.
Lydia's also put cows actually can't see the colour red, so red rag to a bull is factually incorrect. That is correct, actually. It's the fact that you're waving something in front of a bull that's just going to annoy them, rather than actually.
That is interesting. I feel we always need our facts interspersed with cow references.
Yes.
Thanks, Lydia.
Yeah.
For enriching our interesting fact experience.
So, have you got any interesting facts, Becca?
Not immediate. Normally, I will litter random conversations with my interesting facts. But other than my fact about bananas being a segmented fruit, I can't think of. Yeah.
My phone, my watch is also buzzing because someone's joining our server, which is a good opportunity to mention our Discord channel. So if you're not done that, if you've not joined that before, then you can, if you've got a phone or kind of app or just log online, you can join our Discord server. The link should be in the blurb, and you can come along and say hello, and we'll wave at you.
We'll send you little animated, whatever they are.
And if you join whilst I'm doing it live, my phone will keep on kind of irritating me and distracting me as we go. So there's inspiration for you. Hello, Stephen. How do we know that bulls can't see red? Has someone asked the bull this question? Yeah, basically. Didn't say very much.
Yeah. Direct conversation.
Oh, Sam Wallace. Everyone's coming out with their fact. Banana plant is a herb, not a tree. Geeky.
That is interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. Farmyard fact: if you gently pick up a chicken and put its head underneath its wing, and you do that motion with it, it can go to sleep because it can get very tired and then just fall asleep. And I have actually done.
And they self-level as well, don't they?
Yeah.
If you do the same with the chicken, its head will stay in exactly the same.
So now we're going off, and Brandon has put bull in a China shop is actually incorrect as well. Yes. We were writing all these wrongs.
Putting the world to right, literally. It's going to be a long show, people.
One bull at a time. Right. Okie doke. Shall we start? Oh no, we were still going with these. The facts. Are chickens therefore the first gyroscopes? Well, yeah, there is a bit of an ingoing. There is in joke with kind of filmmakers and things like that of kind of sort of taking a chicken out instead of a camera on a gyroscope sort of thing, and that's quite funny. Yeah. And putting pretending to put GoPros on chicken heads, but they don't actually do that. Or not that I've seen anyway.
I suppose if the chicken's consented to it, it'll be okay.
Yeah. They've asked them, same as the bull. So
good times.
Shall we segue into another bit of conversation? Is that okay?
Oh, do we have a little musical segue moment for that? We don't, do we?
Nope.
We need a random segue piece of music. Yeah, we don't. We could just hum it gently to ourselves.
You start and I'll finish it.
Right, segue away, Mark.
Well,
speaking of phones.
Yes. Well, it was interesting that I'd actually seen a video earlier this week talking about it was like a BBC News from 2001, and they were talking about phone companies and sort of saying, oh, they're trying to kind of encourage people to buy more phones, and so they are kind of advertising the fact that you can send text messages. And they kind of went to like a local primary school, like a secondary school kind of thing, and these kids are like, oh yeah, I like to text my friend, and this sort of thing. And I kind of showed it to my son, and he's like, it's a grey screen. And I was just like, yeah, about that. Texting, we used to have like a limit of 39 characters, including
God.
spaces. And he was like, but what could you even say in 39 kind of 39 kind of letters? And I was like, we managed it.
You did. You just sent
Yeah.
multiple messages.
Oh yeah.
But then it cost you per message, didn't it?
Oh, so Rachel's put mobile phones very interesting. Young kids should not have phones with apps in, as they could become addictive and won't be able to focus on school. Yeah, I think especially if they're actually in school with phones, it can be distracting. But I think personally, I think
it can be, but it's also it's the tool that you use. I mean,
yeah,
I've been in classrooms where we've actively encouraged young people to engage with their phone, and you use it as part of the lesson rather than, there's the same as any workshop where you're given permission to pick up your phone. There's a little moment of, oh, lovely, thank you.
Well, and it's interesting, isn't it? Talking about schools and things. I remember a teacher sort of telling us that this maths exam, you're not going to be allowed to have calculators because you're never going to be walking around with a calculator. And it's just like, yeah. However, nowadays we walk around
shows
with phones
how much you know.
have calculators, and so therefore, do I need to know math anymore? I just open up my phone and work it out that way. But general arithmetic is good. But it is interesting of how times have changed in regards to mobile phones. And just before we went live, Becca and I were sharing about kind of our kind of first kind of phones, and I want to show you a little picture. So I'm sorry for those on
comment what your first phone is, if you can remember make and model.
So I actually have my very first phone here, which is a Vodafone. It's a Triumph, and it's also got one of those kind of like nifty, like little pull aerials.
Oh, look at you! That's very fancy.
Nifty. And if it's unfortunately it doesn't work anymore, and the battery's corroded. I do really need to get rid of this, really, but I just thought I would bring it out. So I went to college with this. That was kind of my moment. And so again, interestingly,
what year was that, Mark?
2000. And so okay. Others at the time, and kind of like just like the year before, around that kind of time, I think Nokia 3310 was quite popular. And this was kind of my Vodafone Triumph. So that was that one.
Mine was a Motorola. It looked very similar, but it didn't have the pull-out antennae. Is it an antennae?
Yeah, an antenna. Yeah. Brandon's put my old one was an old Nokia, very much like Mark's.
And they were those Nokia were indestructible. Sam says, I used to do a bit of lecturing. I had a class of about 5 degree students, all in their phones. Felt a bit annoyed, but they were Googling around the subject.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Is what is the culture that you're kind of expecting? Because I think that is a little bit of thing of saying, actually, are you engaged in the room, or are you kind of engaging with the subject but elsewhere? And some people will have different expectations of that. There's even an argument there when we talk about if people are kind of accessing worship online via phones at home, are they just as present in the moment as somebody who's maybe sat in the congregation? Are they bored there? Are they engaging as much as somebody at home? And therefore there's this whole kind of debate of actually who is engaging here. And actually phones can both help and hinder, but it depends on our expectations. And sometimes phones can actually just be there to help us with kind of stimulations, with kind of concentrations. Lydia again, Mark's done it, the tiny version. Yes, of course, I'm on a little reduced screen because I'm showing other things. I'll turn that off again. You're
on
on
a
it
roll
tonight.
today, Lydia.
Stephen Jones put Motorola 7500, the one that flipped open, the antenna pulled out.
Oh,
It had 2-line display.
good
Look at
gracious.
that. Blimey. That's something to boast about.
I don't know about other people, but I did used to put my Nokia in my back pocket of my jeans. This might be more pertinent for girls and boys, but then when I went to the loo, I would forget that I'd put the phone in my back pocket. So as you pull down your jeans, they push out whatever's in your pocket. And on numerous occasions, my phone just plopped. Fortunately, I had yet to fully sit down on the seat. So it plopped into clean water. But it was on one of our missions that I squealed very loudly at a host's house who had very kindly put us up, and came out of the bathroom and, not thinking, was shaking my phone saying, I've just dropped this down the toilet, flinging around clean toilet water.
I won't. There's a couple of comments here. I'm going to put one up from Sam that talks about, when you bring out your your app on the phone of your Bible. So when people talk about opening the Bible, sometimes it gets funny looks in church. We've had that when I was at a festival, and someone said, if you'd like to turn on your Bibles, and there was this little Christian laughter, because they were relevant though. They were making the point that actually, we don't always have paper Bibles now. Actually, we've got an app. We've got kind of e-readers and things like that. But yeah, there is. Oh yeah, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. You've seen that. So basically, Lydia's just put, I have a fidget app on my phone that I use when I can't concentrate. I get looks, especially in church, and that is a shame, isn't it? Because actually, we have this. As Rich said earlier, there's this kind of view that phones can't always, aren't always a good thing, but actually it depends on how we use them. And I think that, yes, there are instances where, people might just be messing on distracting and otherwise by phones. And if I'm honest, I sometimes get distracted by my phone or my watch, that it's kind of coming up with stuff. And I'm just like, no, I've got to focus here. I'm leading a service. I'm at the front here, but there are other times when you can actually use them to engage with people and otherwise. And I think this shift, and I think this is where I was really intrigued about this kind of phones and social and kind of like smartphones have become such a center point of our life and communication now. There's a discussion, should there be otherwise, but they are in society quite a central point. Whereas like 20 years ago, they were a fad. They were like, how can we use these?
Yeah, I could happily have my phone lose its battery and then wouldn't know where it was, because I'd had plenty of other things going on in the house and around me. But as soon as a smartphone that was full color had pictures, they'd sorted out the way you paid for things, so that you weren't paying for every line of your text message, but it was then on Wi-Fi, and it really did. And because it's so quick and easy to be entertained, the addiction is a very real thing. It's an immediate pleasure, immediate satisfaction. You don't need to look for anything. You don't even have the decision fatigue that I sometimes find with the TV. So if I've got multiple platforms where I could watch television, on my phone there's less, and I'll just go on Instagram, and Instagram gives me all of the gazillion different things that I'm interested in because I've filtered it to be that way. It's a real thing.
And but this is it, because phones have advanced, haven't they? I remember my uncle coming in with a satellite phone, which was like a big suitcase with like a phone on the top, and I'm there thinking, wow, that's really cool. But then thinking, he's a farmer. Why does he need one of those? Especially as he had a CB radio in the corner, so he had like a CB station, so that you could kind of like, so he could kind of be chatting to people on the tractors anyway. So I was like, oh wow. But again, I was like, but why? But then kind of coming through with like the analog phones. So I was aware of our youth leader having an analog phone, and it was just funny of how it used to cut out, you know, all that kind of fun of it. But then the way that kind of texting suddenly kind of came in onto the scene, and again, this is it, that these devices have got so much more cleverer and kind of you know, become multifaceted, and that there's more kind of tech and RAM and memory in these sort of things than we ever had. And so to have them just accessible, and you know, there is an argument though about kind of the environment and the kind of use of that too, and so I think we can't get away from that as a downside to it. But but when the first computer came out, it filled a building. Now we can carry computers in our pockets. If you think about it like that, it's amazing and a bit scary. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll say that I remember kind of being in the Lincolnshire district, and going home to visit my mum, and so going back to my old family home, and there was an issue on in the press, and so my chair of district contacted me to say, we need to release a statement quick. And I was looking after the website, and I was just like amazed. First of all, he could contact me because I lived out in the middle of nowhere, and my mum was like in the sticks. I think you've been once, didn't you, Becca? And lived out in the middle of. You did from after Methodist Youth Conference.
Really?
You came back for a family meal at my house, but you've obviously forgotten.
My memory is atrocious. That's because it's not in my phone.
No, but we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I was just like, wow, we wouldn't have had signal in those days. Do you know what I mean? It's so remote that there's like
I know.
signal. But then the next thing is that within moments, I could open up my phone, log onto the website, and change everything from my bed.
Yeah.
I didn't tell my chair of district that, but I was just there, and I was like, you know what, I could do this straight away. Done.
And that is another addiction and another danger, isn't it? Is that with the ease that you can use mobile phones, you've got, you know, I've got my work apps, I've got my kids, I've got my family, WhatsApp, Telegram, iMessage, all of those things constantly there. I've got constant notifications that, because it's so easy, do it, whether it is right or whatever the more helpful term is, of sitting in your bed doing work, whereas before we'd never have dreamed of inviting the district chair into our bedroom. and yet there's that element of invasiveness. They're so mobile, they're so easy to use, they're so connected. Where is the space from this constant level of connection?
And that is something about boundaries, isn't it? I purposely don't have very many notifications come up on my phone, so I don't have hardly anything. So I've got to actively go into those sort of places. Likewise, TikTok, I actually don't have it on data, so I can't watch it out and about. I have it just limited just to Wi-Fi. Just to kind of, but this is it. I need mechanisms to kind of put in place to kind of protect myself. And it's interesting with you know, younger kids are just exploring about kind of what does it mean. It's I think it's Internet Safety Day today, isn't it, or something? Or
is it?
So you know, it's all that kind of, you're aware that we have got the world in our pocket. We have got the internet just a touch away. And what does that mean?
But then it's, you know, I have the Amazon device plugged into the wall, who I will not say the name of for fear that she's listening. That takes a load off what I'm juggling in my head, of noticing that I've run out of something, or noticing that I need to be reminded, that I can speak out loud to a constantly listening device in my room, and it'll go to my phone and add to my shopping list or add to my notifications. And I think that is absolutely beautiful and helpful.
And I won't mention names, but I was actually chatting to somebody about their other half struggling with their health, and I think it's dementia. And they were saying, actually, is there a way that we could get the device to kind of do an alarm? And I was like, yeah, you can. You can kind of set it reminders and bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Like, what, every day? I was like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
But you know, it's that balance of, as long as it helps you and as long as it doesn't get in the way and as long as there isn't a power cut, as long as there isn't, you know, but there are ways in which it can enable. And I think this is it, that it can be very easy to polarize, kind of go, all tech is bad, but it depends on how we kind of use it. And I think this is why with another hat on, I'm a digital church enabler, where I explore other ways of being church using the digital stuff. And I've talked before about augmented reality, that we have these powerful devices that can enable us to kind of explore the world around us, but also the kind of the virtual and the augmented kind of world around us, that we can kind of do really interesting and fascinating things, and yet we still kind of put them in a box. We kind of put them to one side and sort of, but again, there's a part of this kind of discernment, isn't there, and kind of maturity of how do we use these best effectively, rather than it just being kind of as the common denominator, just to keep us entertained for a couple of swipes.
I guess that's where values come in. So, and I read Lydia's comment that it's really interesting how TikTok algorithm is working for myself, Lydia, and my Mark, so not this Mark, because he keeps sending me cow videos. He gets lots of cows on his, and Lydia gets lots of office humor and DIY stuff. But I think that's quite telling of a positive use of social media. So that's little send button in the corner. It's not that I'm just lost in whatever DIY or lino cutting or pottery I might be looking at, but there's an instant ability to share with a person I think would be interested. I remember really early on in the 2000s when my mum didn't yet have a phone, but enough people I knew did, and it felt like a disconnect that I couldn't just pop a text message, because that had become my normal pattern of connecting with people.
My mum hates the internet. She absolutely hates the Facebook. She calls it the Facebook, and we've. But at the same time, we just kind of sort of said, well, actually, whilst we don't want to force you onto it, what we could do is, in the end, one of my siblings kind of got her a second-hand iPad, and we just set up photo sharing. So actually, she doesn't have to kind of negotiate the internet or on being on social media, but we can have like a protective in-house way of sharing stuff in the confines without having to complicate issues. Lydia's, but I send TikToks to people as a way of showing I saw something they might like and want to show care. And I do find the whole algorithm thing really interesting, though, and about kind of, they also kind of monitor your IP address, and so that if you change and also kind of satellite locations, so that if you're in the same household as somebody else, then if they're interested in something, then you might get advertisements. And so somebody, I think it was a guy in America, was saying, I don't understand why I was getting denture kind of stuff coming through, and it's because I'd spent a fortnight at my mum's. And that was her kind of regular shopping, and so it would kind of assume that I would be interested in that. But I still think that they have got a long way to go to work out our shopping kind of stuff. And otherwise, I get things where I'm just like, right, all because I've bought one printer, I don't want to buy a second printer next week. I know I get frustrated
that's
with
the weird thing. Mattress adverts I keep getting. You're like, no, I only need the one. Thank you.
Remind me in 10 years, or later. Stephen Jones, but using platforms such as Zoom has also enabled people with those whose health is poor to still be part of their church community and participate in services. And absolutely, Stephen. And I think, again, the ability for mobile phones is it takes away those technological kind of advancements away from having the need to have a desktop, and that you can bypass the serious tech for the sake of a mobile device. So that I know that we kind of have this assumption that old people don't do tech, and I think that's an absolute lie. Is that actually because of iPads and kind of devices like that, then it is much more accessible because they don't need to know how to restart their computer. They don't need to know how to set it all up. All they have to do is turn it on, and usually, if it doesn't work, turn it off, turn it back on again. And it works again, and so that the world is much more accessible because it is designed to be accessible for all ages. So it's really quite fascinating.
It's a real field leveler, isn't it? If you can have access to the technology and are willing to just go through that brave portal into finding the on button, knowing what the app icon looks like. We saw that, kind of 80 and 90-year-old people FaceTiming for the first time, especially during COVID, where it became, a necessity, and people opening Christmas presents over FaceTime, watching puppies grow up, great grandchildren grow up. So there is a huge kind of leveler of what can happen, and obviously not everyone can afford Wi-Fi. Not everyone can afford devices.
And I think that is something that we need to, as a society, be aware of, is that the more of these things that go online and require this sort of thing what's the whole kind of thingy's pyramid. Actually, Wi-Fi is actually really integral nowadays to our society, and therefore we should be working on it being free. I know that sounds very lefty, but the way that we're making demands of people and expectations of people, then it should be as a free kind of a service that we should have. But it was interesting that we were talking about kind of swiping and turning phones on. Someone was saying about what gesture do we make when we're answering a phone. And so we would normally kind of, a certain generation would put a thumb up and a finger out to talk about, and like if you're answering a phone, you'd do that and you'd lift it up. So people on podcasts, gesturing, kind of lifting up a handset from an old phone landline, whereas actually the younger generations would literally pretend to pick up a phone and swipe up on their hand to answer a phone, and just of how culturally different that people are. Sorry, Stevens, but Mark, you mentioning old people don't do tech. It's often struck me that old folk with families around the world are often the most tech savvy. Absolutely, yeah. And this is it. I was kind of saying that we shouldn't have those assumptions. Becky's granddad, when he was alive, bless him, he made his own computer at 86, 87, and he put it together himself. And it's like, too right. Age shouldn't be a limiting factor at all. That being said, it's also interesting. I spoke to one person who said, "I don't do computers," and I was like, "All right, is it because you never?" "Oh no, I taught computers, and then I retired. I didn't want to touch a computer ever again." And I was just like, "Oh, okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough." It's but yeah, it does enable, doesn't it? The tech does enable, and again, it can be. We can have these views of it. It can limit, but it can also enable as well. And it's just getting that right balance with all things. And I think as Christians, as people with faith, that actually it is that challenge as well of how do we engage with our faith with these things, and whether it's devotional apps or listening to music. Music for me, and I never realised how integral music could be, and that is due to my phone. I would have never have got like an MP3 player on its own. I think I maybe had one, but it never became an integral part. But having a phone with headphones that I could plug in, for me, has transformed the way I listen to music, and therefore it also transforms the way that I can be reflective with God and listen to kind of music and things like that.
I think some of my most commonly used apps are things like the Examine, which is great. The Centering Prayer app, which is also great, both of which offer kind of centering, contemplative prayer focus. Similarly with my Tech Carter, my Life Bible, that just gives access to things that I would probably forget were there.
Yeah.
At the moment, my biggest app is Duolingo. It is showing me that I am very late in the day with my practice. But the reason for choosing to practice a language is both for my own kind of flourishing, but my desire to connect with other people that are from a different culture to me, that speak a different language to me. And I think where we allow our values, and for me, my values are very much shaped by my life of faith, and my relationship with God, and my desire to connect with the world and people around me. That's what then drives my how I order. So I have mind, body, soul as folders on my phone, because I know they're things that I prioritize. And I think, I think it's so much more now than the phone that would sit plugged in the corner of a room, which used to give me huge levels of anxiety, to go and call someone, and, anticipating your friend's dad picking up the phone and having to ask very politely if you could speak to Nicola, please. Whereas now you can text and see if someone's in, and you can text your children, and but being aligned with my values feels really important. And I don't think they always allow that. I think there is that darker side to it.
Well, and I think this is it. It's like a work in progress, isn't it? I always find that you've kind of just got to continue to revisit and sort of say, actually, am I getting the right balance here? I really enjoy having the phone that tells me, like, your daily average of screen time has been this. Each week it tells me how much or how little I've been watching it. And then if I'm feeling really guilty, I'll pick up my iPad and it'll kind of go, you've been on this device for 40 minutes this week. And I'm like, ha ha. I've tricked you. But yeah, I mean, they have the means to be able to be good. They have the means to be able to be bad. And it's just how we approach them, and also what we expect from others from them. And I think it can be challenging sometimes, but we've got to explore how we can best use them. I am aware of a pub chain just down the road, I won't mention them, that they had banned mobile phones because they wanted locals to talk, and they were not allowed to be out. And the person was there kind of going, I am diabetic, this helps me know that I am fine, I'm okay. And they got kicked out of the pub for having a mobile phone. And it's just like, well, you've lost me as a customer now, I'm not going to come back. And it's just like, there's such a narrow view of what a phone can do. But then there are also those who mess around with it as well.
And it's how do you navigate this sort of conversation where you create etiquette? I don't know where etiquette really comes from. It's it's the things that you start to accept as normal. But there was, I can't remember who the quote was, but it was around the idea of technological advancement outstripping our kind of ethical or moral guide or thinking about it, that actually somebody's got to have the conversation about what is healthy and helpful, while also knowing we get things terribly, terribly wrong. It's not putting yourself as a ethical expert, but as people that get it wrong. I know that I've at various points been addicted to my phone, and I've used it to numb and distract rather than engage with the world. That's a good question. David Gree asks, at what point do we become too dependent on our phones? I don't know. I do use my phone to follow people who homestead. So at some point, my knowledge will be reached.
What does that mean?
Homesteading, where you have a small plot of land, which is essentially farming. What would it be here? Where you're off grid.
Oh, okay.
You grow your own food. You raise your own animals.
Sort of thing.
it's kind of off-grid, self-reliant, sustainable, but local farming. So it's not mass-produced farming, but at some point, we're going to maybe have a whole magnetic wipeout of electricity. And then the question is, can I make bread? Can I make fabric? Can I sew?
So we've gone from kind of mobile phones to kind of technological Armageddon fire sale, kind of
that's
end of the
where
world stuff.
we just
Wow,
went.
we've
That's
done
what
that.
I'm
Within an
assuming.
hour. We managed to go
Yes,
there
I
in an
know.
hour.
Full circle.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I think this is it. But we do have to ask those questions, and I think we've got to be held accountable to saying. And I think because we've got quite a smart house here, as to say, with smart plugs and smart devices, smart routines, and it's just like actually, yeah, I have been for the last couple of weeks been really furious with my doorbell, because it is just frustrating. Okay. Yeah, it's frustrating when technology doesn't work, and I am expecting my my smart doorbell to tell me when somebody's at the door. Is that too much to ask? I have bought it; it should do it, but I'm blooming annoyed when it doesn't work, and it's trying to kind of connect to the Wi-Fi dish at the other end of the house, and there's one right next to the doorbell, 3 foot away, and it's
The
like the equivalent of
frustration, Mark. I
it's
don't
like the
know how you
printer.
cope.
First world problem, completely and utterly. But they're going to go, come on, it's there. If I just attached a webcam to this Wi-Fi dish, it would be better than this doorbell. It's just.
I imagine you're a
it's frustrating.
delight to live
Yes,
with
yes,
this past week.
that's all of this. This is all my life is about. But do you know what I mean? But this is it, isn't it? It's what permission are we giving to this tech to take over? And I think I try and sort of say they should be a slave to us. We shouldn't be a slave to them. And I think
probably
that's
we need
difference.
to diversify. Yeah, I'd hate to lose my ability to sit down and read a book instead of relying only on audiobooks. I'd hate to lose my ability to look for knowledge in a library. Is that a skill set we still need to have? I'd hate to lose that. So
specifically like the duodecimal system, is that, or just generally just to be able to peruse and walk into a library?
Yeah, no, that I can't
duodecimal,
say
is it? Duodecimal.
Well, I mean, as a child, I used to go and look up in an encyclopedia and be really excited to kind of flick through the pages and find information. Whereas now I'll type it into Google and get frustrated when I go to a supermarket and I can't search instantly for the item that I'm looking for.
But then also culture has changed as well, where once upon a time you could go around to someone's like living room and take a peruse of their bookshelf or their DVD shelf to kind of get an idea and kind of go, oh, they're interested in this kind of thing. But now it's all on a device. So if you don't know the passcode, then you can't get in.
Well, that's why you follow them on social media, surely.
That is true, because they talk about what their book they're reading. Take a lovely photo of the book on Instagram.
Yes, yes.
But I think that's where things like 50 Shades of Grey became so popular, because it tied in with the kind of electric e-readers, so that you could read something of an adult nature on the train anywhere, whereabouts, because actually you didn't have to show the cover of it. And it's just fascinating of how technology changes.
Whereas others of us have been reading Mills and Boon hidden inside Great Expectations for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nobody ever knew.
Absolutely. But do you know what I mean? Technology changes our habits, and again, it's how much of that do we actively kick up against? Because I think there are some people and some generations of kids coming through kind of going, no, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to go for the non-smartphone, just to kind of to rebel against society in that sort of way.
Could you do that? Could you go back to your, I can't remember what your first phone was.
Your
Nokia.
My Vodafone. No, because this is died. But
obviously,
I might be able to kind of go back to this one. LG. No, in fact, this one was useless actually. this one was a better one. This Samsung, this LG phone.
Order much? Do we want a whole session on
No,
when does Geekery
I
order
old tech,
into hoarding?
Old tech. I do need to recycle these though. I do say this. I am aware of time, but this phone boasted all kinds of stuff. I've used this on sermon illustrations many times because it was like, oh, it has like radio, it has mobile, it has pictures, it has the little flick up thing, you know, and yet it was absolutely rubbish at taking phone calls. It was the worst phone, and I had to ring up several times to kind of go, well, no, but not from here, not from this phone. Because it was useless. And so I was like, the signal on it is anyway. So yeah, but yeah, there may be something about me kind of getting rid of these and recycling them. Good for the planet, good for the world. But I do try and use my phones usually to death, so they get a longer life. Is that? We haven't done geeky gallery, and it's nearly time. Should we do that really quickly?
Let's whiz through Geeky Gallery because we're proud of our geeks.
Yeah. So Tom has been sharing some Lego stuff. There's also some other bits Warhammer coming up, but it's kind of like a traditional kind of red telephone box, as well as like I think it's a Dune helicopter and kind of characters down there as well. Then there's Tom's got some.
Did you know helicopters have something to do with? Oh no,
Helicor. Yeah. Go on. And then this is a little picture of me playing Wind in the Willows. They're like an old-fashioned game, hoarding an old board game of Wind in the Willows. Actually, this was given to me as like a retro present. That's Wind in the Willows. Then David Specky Geek has been sharing a bit about his projects in Dubai, as well as so the Kill Team, 7 models of a Kill Team, and Azul, which is like the tile building game. Have you played that, Becca?
No.
It's quite cool. It's again about heavy on the strategy and kind of having a head to think about kind of where you're going with stuff, but very colourful, very smart looking. And Beth, I've turned it the other way around, Beth, sorry, because the photo was on the side, and this is Arc Nova from a few weeks ago, and she says on the Discord about kind of being inspired by others and buying kind of games after playing with them with other people. I think when you do come across a good game, it can be an opportunity to kind of go, we'll get that. So that is that, and that is the end of Geeks Gallery.
Nice, thank you, lovely people.
We are done, aren't we?
Yeah.
Is there anything left to say?
I don't think so. I think we hold this space, don't we? And we don't. There aren't answers to what's right or wrong about your phone, but there are things that steer you, and I think that's where me knowing where I am with God, listening to my little God radar of when things are right, when my anxiety spikes and I think, okay, I'm just not connecting somewhere, or I've got an unhealthy relationship with my phone or something. And it might be years before I actually deal with it, but deal with it we must if we want to flourish. Yeah,
and if we bring these things before God, whether it's a phone or technology or an app or lots of apps, I think as long as we're bringing them before God, then we're kind of on the right track. I guess it's when we hide things away and when we don't engage with what it means, or is where we're on a slippery slope.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Becca, for today.
Thank you, Mark, for today.
Yes, and thank you, folks, for comments and otherwise. And we'll keep posted. We have got a few guests lined up. A couple of them are just getting back to us, and there's kind of a whole wide variety of stuff coming up. So
it's like really broad, isn't it? What have we got? We've got astrology. Do I mean astrology? Astronomy?
Astronomy.
Although that could be interesting.
Yeah. Then criminology, possibly. I can't remember.
Ooh,
It depends. I think there's a variety, you see, and possibly even comic books. But it depends on how people fancy it. And I think sometimes we have this kind of very narrow set idea of what is geekdom and geekery. And I think as we kind of explore these things, people kind of go, "Oh, I was thinking of this, but actually, I'm really into this," and that's okay. And I'm happy to kind of talk about all these things, or none of these things, or just broader subjects. But thank you, folks. Thank you
folks. We
for
love you.
tuning in, and geek safe. Bye-bye.
Bye. Come on.